Imagine you are sitting in a room. It is July. The year is 1902. The walls are made of brick. The windows are open, but no wind comes in. The temperature outside is 38 degrees Celsius. That is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Your shirt is completely wet. Your hands are shaking. You cannot think. You cannot sleep. And there is nothing at all you can do about it. This was not a bad day for one person. This was every summer for almost everyone in most of the United States. Cities like New York, Washington, Atlanta, Houston, entire regions of a country that called itself the most powerful on earth, became almost unlivable for 3 or 4 months every single year. People died. Businesses closed early. Governments made decisions slowly because the men making them could not think straight in the heat. Hospitals were full. The south of the country was so hot, so humid, so full of heavy, wet air that many people simply refused to move there. Can you imagine? Half a continent avoided because of temperature. And then one man asked a question that almost nobody thought was worth asking. His name was Willis Carrier. He was 25 years old. He worked for a small company in Buffalo, New York, a cold city, far from the heat of the South. He had not grown up rich. He had not gone to the most famous university. He had grown up on a farm in Angola, New York, helping his mother dry fruit and store vegetables. As a child, she taught him something simple. If you control temperature, you control survival. He did not know yet how far that idea would travel. In the summer of 1902, a printing company in Brooklyn called Sackett and Wilhelms had a problem. And here's the thing. It was not the kind of problem you might expect. It was not that the workers were suffering, though they were. It was that the paper was suffering. In summer heat, paper absorbs moisture. It takes in water from the air. When paper absorbs moisture, it expands slightly. When it expands, ink does not print in the right place. The colors drift. The images blur. The magazines coming out of the factory looked terrible. The company was losing money. They hired Willis Carrier to fix the paper, not to fix the people. The paper. Carrier sat with the problem for weeks. He drew diagrams. He calculated. He thought about something called dew point, the temperature at which water in the air becomes liquid. He realized that if he could cool the air to a specific temperature, the moisture in it would condense, turn to water, and fall away. The air would become dry, controllable. The paper would behave correctly. Think about that. He was not trying to make people comfortable. He was trying to protect ink on paper. And in doing so, he accidentally began to change the way human beings live on this planet. His machine worked. Sackett and Wilhelms printed beautiful magazines that summer. The colors were sharp. The paper was flat. Nobody in the building talked much about the temperature. They just noticed that it was easier to breathe. But Carrier was thinking bigger now. He had seen something that nobody else had quite seen yet. The machine was not just for paper. It was not just for printing. If you could control the temperature of air inside a building, you could control almost everything that happened inside that building. You could grow different crops. You could store different foods. You could build factories in places that had been too hot to work in before. He left the company he worked for. He started his own. He called it the Carrier Engineering Corporation. And almost immediately, the world told him to stop. Banks would not lend him money. They said his idea was too strange, too expensive, too uncertain. Investors, people who give money to new businesses, looked at his plans and shook their heads. Why would anyone pay to cool the air inside a building? Air was free. The idea seemed almost childish to them. One meeting after another ended the same way. Politely, quietly, with a closing door. There were years, real years, not just bad weeks, when Carrier could not pay his workers, when he had to choose between buying materials and paying rent, when the only people who believed in him were the small number of engineers who had seen the machines actually work. And here is what is easy to miss. He kept going, not because he was certain he would succeed. He kept going because he was certain the problem was real. People suffered in heat. Businesses lost money because of heat. Children got sick because of heat. The problem was right there, in front of everyone, every summer. He simply refused to stop looking at it. If you are learning something difficult right now, a language, a skill, something that keeps not working yet, then you already understand this feeling. The problem is real. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is real. And everyone around you might be telling you the gap is too wide. That is not new. That is just Tuesday. If this kind of story is why you come here, stories about people who stayed curious when the world got quiet, consider subscribing. There are many more of them. Through the 1910s and 1920s, Carrier slowly found small victories. Textile mills in the American South, factories that made cloth and fabric, discovered that humidity control made their threads stronger and their machines faster. Tobacco companies, pharmaceutical companies, companies making medicine, found they could produce more consistent products. Quietly, without anyone writing big newspaper headlines, air conditioning entered the working world through the back door. Then, in 1925, Carrier did something that changed public understanding forever. He installed his system in the Rivoli Theater in New York City. The Movie Palace, a large, beautiful cinema, opened its doors in the summer. And people walked in from the hot street and felt something they had never felt in a public building before. Cool air. Clean, dry, moving. Cool air. They did not come back for the movie. They came back for the air. Lines formed around the block. People sat through 2 showings, 3 showings, not because the film was that good, but because they did not want to go back outside. Newspapers wrote about it. People talked about it. A word entered everyday conversation: air conditioning. And suddenly, it did not sound childish anymore. It sounded like the future. Before we reach the end, drop a comment. If air conditioning had never been invented, which city do you think would be most different today? The next decade moved quickly. Carrier's company grew. Department stores installed the systems. Hotels installed them. Hospitals discovered that cool, controlled air reduced infection. Bacteria and viruses spread differently in controlled temperature. Office buildings in cities across the country began to feel different in summer. Productivity increased. That means workers got more done. Thinking became easier. Decisions became clearer. And the American South, that vast, beautiful, humid region that wealthy people had avoided for generations, began to fill with people. Cities like Houston, Miami, Atlanta, Phoenix. These are now among the largest cities in the United States. Phoenix, in the middle of a desert, is home to over 4 million people. That number is almost impossible without air conditioning. The population movement that reshaped American politics, American culture, American food, American music, it flows in a direct line back to a machine that a 25-year-old designed to fix someone else's printing problem. Carrier did not become famous the way inventors and stories usually do. He did not have one perfect dramatic moment where the whole world suddenly understood. The change was slow. It was commercial before it was personal. It arrived in factories and movie theaters and hospitals before it arrived in homes. When it finally arrived in homes, and that happened mostly after World War II, after the 1950s, it arrived so gradually that most people forgot to ask where it came from. Willis Carrier died in 1950. He was 73 years old. He lived just long enough to see air conditioning begin to enter American living rooms. He did not live to see the full shape of what he had built. He did not see the desert cities. He did not see the medical breakthroughs that happened in temperature-controlled laboratories. He did not see the server rooms, the giant buildings full of computers that now hold most of human information, rooms that require precise, constant cooling to function at all. Without his machine, the internet as you use it today might not exist. Think about that. And here is the image I want to leave you with. There is a photograph of Willis Carrier from around 1930. He is standing in an office. He is wearing a suit. He is not smiling for the camera the way people sometimes do when they know a photograph is important. He is looking slightly to the side. He looks like a man who is still thinking. Like the problem is not finished yet. Like there is something just outside the frame that he is still trying to understand. That look, that quiet, still working look, is the real story. Not the patents, not the company, not the cities that grew in deserts because of him. The story is that he kept looking at the problem when everyone told him to look away. You are learning something right now. Maybe it is English. Maybe it is something else. Maybe some days it feels like the words are wet paper that will not hold their shape. Maybe some days you feel like you are sitting in that hot room in 1902 and no wind is coming through the window. But Carrier did not need the wind to come to him. He built the machine. He found another way. The question is not whether your problem is solvable. The question is whether you are willing to stay in the room with it long enough to find out.